Boom. There is no match for Trad Inc., loosely defined as Terry Barber and Jesse Romero in this video, from Big Annulment, okay? And the reason is because these guys all endorse or allow or accept NFP, which has destroyed the legal basis of marriage. So anyone can walk in and just knock down the strong man of natural marriage, because if nature is love, then we can go ahead and do whatever we want with it, which is exactly what's going on. Now, this video we're going to watch, or that I've started here, is all because the impetus, the venue for Rose Sweet's most upcoming talk in November, let me see if I can find it here, is here. It's right here. This one right here. The Catholic Family Conference, okay? And it's put on by St. Benedict Media. Now, someone alerted me she's coming. Rose Sweet is coming to the historic Sacred Heart Chapel in West Covina, California. When? November 22nd this year. She's going to go with William Albrecht, who's sort of a Catholic Answers guy or whatever. I'm trying to see it up. Point is that I called Terry Barber, who either manages or owns or both the historic Sacred Heart. I'm like, Terry, what's going on? Rose Sweet, she's a big problem. She's anti-marriage, okay? And he's like, I don't know, it's kind of, I don't know. He just wouldn't answer these questions I had for him and stuff. Not much anyway. And so he's basically, he has no basis to veto what's going on, even though he has the power to cancel Rose Sweet. I don't think he's going to do it. And that's bad news. We're going to get into exactly why that is, okay? So let's just start with a few facts. By the way, John Farrell annulment proof, and that's what you're watching. So we're going to try to do this as quick as we can. Let us start. Hang on. So the first thing we're going to do is just go through Rose Sweet's position on divorce, okay? There's a ton we could say about her, and I'll get into a little bit more of it off script here, but we're going to go through her most recent blog post, which is, do bishops need permission from their bishop to file for civil divorce? And the answer is yes, but Rose Sweet's answer is no, because, as we're going to, and I've told you guys this many times, marriage is now a personal governance the whole way through, okay? So we're going to expose some of this stuff right now. So she says, let me get to it here. Where is it? Just a minute. Hang on. Okay. Do they need permission? You can't divorce. You need the bishop's permission first. Now, the reason why people are starting to say this in 2025, which they never said in 2005, like nobody, is because people like me, Bay McFarlane, and a lot of other people who are basically learning to use the internet and figuring out the research that just like when Protestants say the Bible says this and that, you got to go look at history. So if you get into history, you can't stay with Big Annulment. When you look into history, you realize that all church divorces happen on church property first, per ecclesiastical judgment. This claim is from some vocal Catholics who are trying to protect the dignity and permanence of marriage. Whoa, who could those vocal Catholics be? Well, Rose, she has canceled me long ago, right? Way long ago. I can't get to her at all. They hate divorce, and rightly so. All right, now, as you know, the church says, the Bible says, it's not that we hate divorce, it's that when you hate your spouse, you divorce them, you put them away. That's what the Bible says, and I'm going to show that reference in a minute, and I'll put it all in the show notes. So just so you guys get it. Now, it's not true. Okay, here we go. And they claim, citing Canon Law 1692, that you must not even separate from your spouse without your bishop's permission. It's not true. All right, what she just said is anathema per Council of Trent. Black and white, no question about it. Totally, she is dead to rights, okay? But the reason she can get away with this, like I said, marriage law has become marriage law, which means marriage is lawless, because it's whatever you want. That's what's up. And unless those in Trad Inc. can disabuse themselves from legal NFP, they're at the mercy of whoever wants to challenge marriage law. They have no basis. It's like saying, well, abortion isn't intrinsically evil, therefore it's all in a spectrum and it's gray area and we can't judge. And that's exactly what Mormons do. They go to their pastor and they pray about it and they discern carefully, and that's what all Catholics do now with NFP. All right. Canon law is a body of laws regulating the governing the Catholic Church and its members. That's right. Canon law has always said you need the bishop's permission. It says the bishop can grant permission and not must grant permission. That is the stupid little argument. The bishop can grant permission and no one else can. Yeah, the bishop can grant permission, but so can Rose Sweet or yourself. That's stupid. Completely stupid. No, only the bishop has jurisdiction. Like I said, I'm going to back up everything I'm saying and asserting with the receipts, so just hold on. As you know, I like to hear everything in your comments, and I do respond to everything as many times as you want, which is, I can't say that about anybody else. All of these people I'm going to present, that's for sure. All right, 1692. Unless other provision is legitimately made in particular places, that means unless the bishops have gotten together with the state and said, you guys handle the divorces because we can't do it, or we're choosing to farm out our separations to the state as long as it's within divine law, okay? Since that has not happened yet, a decree of the diocesan bishop or judicial sentence can decide the personal separation of baptized spouses. This is because the marriage contract has natural law rights and it's per divine law, has nothing. It's not civil jurisdiction. Okay? According to the norm of the following canons, and it goes on. And I'm going to show the rest of that in a second. Let me just pause for a second. All right. Is this even a practical reality? This is so goofy. We have got to go through this. Imagine, so she's saying, look, can we get everyone to ask the bishop's permission to separate? How could that possibly happen? Imagine hundreds of men and women each year in a diocese who consider separation or divorce. They would be spending countless writing, they would be spending countless writing, communicating. I guess she meant countless hours. Spending countless hours writing, communicating with the bishop, telling his or her story, trying to prove the good reason to separate, providing proofs and necessary witnesses, and bringing witnesses if necessary, to protect the rights of both parties and to make a prudent call. The bishop or specially trained staff, would be required to thoroughly examine each case. That's correct. It's a court case all over again with the bishop as judge and a bureaucratic nightmare. Oh, we can't have that. Listen, all annulments are exactly this. There's hundreds of annulments every year, and they bring proofs and witnesses, and the bishop makes the decision, or the tribunal, the judicial vicar, all right? Same thing. So instead of doing all these annulments, they could do all these separations. P.S., if you ask AI or whatever, did church used to do ecclesiastical separations, Catholic separation courts? Yes. Instead of the annulment courts, they had separation courts. They always had the annulment courts, but you rarely got there. I think in the turn of the 20th century, there was like less than 100 worldwide annulments because people sort of knew where babies came from and how were capable of it. Now it's all over because you have to have love, right? Right. So, that reminds me, one other thing. I got to push pause for a second. We're going to digress just a second. Look at this meme I put on Facebook. I was looking at 1 Corinthians 6:16. He who is joined to a harlot is made one body. So what it takes to become one flesh is just the physical act. You don't need the total gift of self or whatever. This is a canonical novelty created by the modernists of Vatican II, and they have created their love poetry, and it sort of became law through the new code, right? And jurisprudence. And now you have a total gift of self. So therefore you have negated 1 Corinthians 6:16 because if you can't join to a harlot and become one flesh with them unless you've totally given yourself to No. All it takes to consummate is the physical, all right? But if you'll notice, in canon law today, it says he has to do it in a human manner, right? And that's not defined, which is... there's so much I could talk about. As you know, Cardinal Burke says we have no definition of marriage. There's no accepted description of the essence of marriage. Cardinal Burke said it, all right? I got the receipts. you got nothing now, and that's why Rose Sweet can come in here and kick over all the barriers, and no one can get in her way, not even Trad Inc. Look what. So a buddy of mine who is working on his JCL, he's emailed me back about this, and he says God ordered the prophet Hosea, also known as Hosea, to marry a whore who would never give herself completely to him, and warned him that she would sleep around and never be fully given to him. A situation got so bad that it got his own book in the Bible in order to draw a comparison to God's faithless spouse, Israel, who prostituted herself to idols and surrounding nations, yet God was still faithful. Obviously, God didn't order Hosea to marry invalidly. Anyone paying attention to that? Correct. It's a valid marriage. Hosea's marriage was clearly valid. The message of Hosea is God's radical faithfulness to Israel, and God's call to Hosea to be radically faithful to his adulterous whore of a wife. God ordered him to marry her because she was psychologically predisposed to infidelity. On that basis alone, her marriage is invalid under current canonical jurisprudence, which jurisprudence is just like a group of guys got together and decided through synodality, effectively, democracy, we're going to just take marriage, which is ironclad and unchangeable, and change it. And that's what they did. It says, but God recognized the marriage as entirely valid. That's why all these annulments are bogus, because they say it takes more than what the Bible says to be one flesh with a harlot now. Back to our story. Then we'll get back to these notes. Hold on. Right here. Oh, not just your mouth. Hold it right here. Share this tab. Cool. All right. So anyway, like Rose Sweet is saying, you start trying to bring all these cases forward, and it's going to be this bureaucratic nightmare. Oh, that's what bureaucratic nightmare. How about that? But they're happy to accept the bureaucratic nightmare of the frickin' stupid annulments to prove if there was enough love in the room. Even though you've got 15 kids or whatever, you thought you were becoming one flesh with your spouse because you consummated. Oh, you didn't consummate. You thought you did. You were incapable of a total gift of self. Hello, dum-de-dum-dum. So, as I said, if you type in or you look up separation courts, you will find that every diocese had a separation court, or 5 or whatever, and anyone wanted to separate, they get the husband and wife in there and they knock some heads together and like, look, you guys can't separate because till death do us part, unless there's a good cause, a reasonable cause, because something is really bad, like adultery or mega violence or whatever. And then when the cause ceases, you move back together. And we are managing the case. Not you, not anyone else, not mother-in-law, the bishop, the local ordinary is managing the case. That's where fault-based, quote, divorce comes from. We continue. Instead, the church provides accessible guidelines. Doesn't that sound nice? Give me some of those accessible guidelines. Sounds like Pirates of the Caribbean. Merely guidelines for separation and divorce in both the Catechism of the Catholic Church and canon law. Okay, hang on. Let's keep going. The faithful are encouraged to study, seek wise counsel, just like the Mormons, and discern on their own. Wrong. You're anathema if you discern on your own to separate. Anathema. Can't change that. Okay, so she wants to point, and I'm going to bring the receipts for everything I'm saying. Hang on. 1153, especially in matters of moral, legal, or physical urgency. Okay. No one needs to tell you to consider these decisions carefully and wisely. This is kind of like gaslighting. You're going to be careful and wise. Wisdom comes from fear of the Lord, not fear of Rose Sweet. All right. So you want to get wise, you're going to have to not only do what James Brown says and get to church. I think it was the one old nigger in the basement that the city of Chicago didn't care about. He told the Blues Brothers, "You get wise, you go to church." Separation and divorce that is necessary will still bring about grave harm to the family and community. Yeah, because it violates nature. That's why. But do you need the bishop's permission to make these decisions? You need the bishop's authority. He's the one who judges the separations because he's the guarantor of the contract. And as I've told you guys before, contract is out, Doc. That's out, Doc. What we have now is a covenant of love, and God is the guarantor. So it's between you and God, and the bishop is out, all right? And then we just call everything civil effects. Now, I got more to say. Hold on. Can you believe it? Respected. Oh, here we go. Give me some respect. Respected canon lawyer and judge says, no. Okay, who could that be? I think you might not. You probably don't. I haven't heard much from Ed Peters from the Larry Zonka chair over there at Archdiocese of Detroit lately. He doesn't talk to me at all. And I think they all got aced out of there by the liberals anyway. So, he's kind of conservative and stuff, but they're just totally goofed up on these annulments because of NFP. He says, simmering in Catholic circles for some time has been the assertion that Catholics need permission from their bishop to divorce. Yeah, that's called Catholicism. That's what it is. Thus begins a thoughtful and well-researched article by respected canon lawyer Ed Peters. Okay, blah, blah, blah. You can read it here. I'm going to dissect his little article after a bit. We're going to bring all the receipts. Like I said, it's stupid. He calls law nothing but symbolism. Therefore, do your own thing. Ed Peters is the first American to be appointed to Apostolic Signatura. That's the High Court of the Church. Blah, blah, blah. He is the author of Annulments, the church straight answers to tough questions. Bro, he doesn't answer tough questions. I got plenty of them for him. He just blocks. No frickin' way does he answer tough questions. Ascension Press. This is all part of Catholic Inc., Trad Inc., whatever you want to call it. Father Fessio, everybody. Everyone at Ascension has got... never mind. Okay. Episcopal permission for civil divorce might sometimes be required of Catholics in concordat nations, but not in non-concordat nations such as USA. So people are like, okay, well, that makes sense, and I have no idea what they're talking about, so blah, blah, blah. I'll give you the detailed version later. Concordat, just like I said earlier, if the church decides to farm out its separations to the state. Those separations must be done in accord with divine law, which means the church is going to train and accept the state's judgment, and when they break families apart, that's going to be done per divine law, as in everything natural law is respected. They determine an innocent and a guilty spouse. They don't allow separations unless there's just cause. None of that's going on in the USA. There's like a little of it in Italy and some other countries, maybe, where the civil court isn't nuts, but the civil courts in the USA, certified nuts, Antichrist courts. We don't trust them. They don't do divine law here in the good old USA. No way. So now we have Bishop Olmsted, who's also part of Trad Inc. I don't know what he's doing anymore. He's long gone. But I emailed him that guy questions. He didn't answer me back. But actually, he may have given me an answer or two, but not to the follow-ups or anything, of course. So in 2016, a lady I know sent him a letter, and that became widely publicized. So Bishop Olmsted stated, I have never interpreted Canon 1692 as something required of the faithful. Oh, canon law is not required of the faithful, either from a moral or a legal point of view. Okay, so he's just interpreting it. He doesn't get to interpret it. It just is what it is. No, bishops don't get to interpret canons the way they feel. Okay, he added, the faithful are not under any kind of moral imperative or even a judicial one in seeking my permission to separate, and I have never had need to compel the faithful. He hasn't had a need to seek my permission in these matters. Okay, so now we've got a letter from Bishop Olmsted that says, Rose Sweet is right, you don't need any permission. And I'm Bishop Olmsted, and I'm like a super canon lawyer, so what more do you need, right? And everyone's like, okay. And I'm going to blow this thing out of the water later in the video. Hold on. There. So Rose is like, you have your answer. Aha. Look at that. Okay. But wait, is that it? So, okay. So we got Ed Peters saying go for it. And then we have the Bishop Olmsted saying go for it. Never make a rash or emotionally charged decision to separate or divorce. It's always an emotionally charged decision. Always. I don't know about rash, but whatever. Do everything possible in your power to foster reconciliation. Well, yeah. But one thing that you can do is follow the law, natural law, divine law, canon law, and take if you want to foster reconciliation, you tell your spouse, we're going to separation court, and if you don't do what the bishop says, you go to hell, because you will lose the sacraments, because this is a separation is a salvation issue. Till death do us part, you don't mess with that. You live together because it's a contract for the right over the body. You become one flesh through the body, not the soul, the heart, the self, just the flesh. Unless you want to trash the whole Bible like they do and just say, no, it's we've grown so much now, and love has taken over. It's a new Pentecost, Spirit of Vatican II. New Pentecost, new Bible. Pretty simple. Okay, so anytime you see a response on X or anywhere that says sadly, it's written by a liberal. Almost always. Sadly, in many cases, all of these efforts have been long exhausted or failed, and reconciliation will not be possible. And if reconciliation isn't possible, you just stay single, or you reconcile. That's it. If it's not possible, it's for the bishop to determine. He's the one who's going to get this together, not you. You don't become your own bishop. Otherwise, you're just reinventing what the temptation of Eve. Ye shall be as gods. Making the decision to separate or civilly divorce is never easy. Yeah, follow the church's teachings and stay close to our Lord in the prayer and sacramental life. So she's saying, yeah, keep going to communion, even when you file for divorce on your own authority, and perpetuate that separation, because you can separate what God joins together and go to heaven now, because Rose Sweet has said so, and so did the bishop, and so did Ed Peters. Except it's all anathema, which I will show you in a minute. Hang in there. Get Wise Counsel. Get Wise Catholic Counsel. Make your decision. So it's just kind of like more like gaslighting. It's like, I'm going to get a drink of water. Hang on. If you can see what's really funny here on this picture, what Rose Sweet has done to Jesse Romero is she kicked so hard she put her foot right in his boxing glove, and she uses his boxing glove, his own fingers, his 5 fingers, to knock himself out. More on that one later as well. Let's get back to what we were talking about. Okay, so be assured that if trusted canon lawyers and more gaslighting. Be assured that if listen, she's like, hey, if a canon lawyer and a bishop say it, then it's true. But she makes sure you say that since it's a trust, be assured that if a trusted if Rose Sweet trusts the canon lawyer and Rose Sweet respects the bishop, then you should too. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Trust the experts. The bishops are so good these days. Just trust them. You really should. They got it handled, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. By the way, even the favorite bishop of Terry Barber and Jesse Romero from Virgin Most Powerful Radio is Bishop Strickland. They have him on there all the time, I guess. He's just as bad when it comes to this divorce stuff. He thinks divorce is a private matter. It's all civil, and that's because he's an NFP guy. Love wins. No more marriage contract. It's a covenant of love. You're the bishop now. If you decide there's not enough love in the room for you, then your spouse is not good, therefore they're not capable. Divorce is not a sin anymore. Get your annulment, get your remarriage, bam. Marriage is done for with these bishops, done for unless we can hook nature back up to the contract. Otherwise, marriage is free-floating, like that Tom Petty song, free falling. Then they do not. Okay, be assured, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah. Here she goes. A concordat nation refers to a country that has a formal agreement with the Holy See regarding the relationship between Catholic Church and state. These agreements often address matters of mutual concern, blah, blah, blah. So a concordat nation. If there's no concordat, that means the church is handling it. If the church has farmed out its stuff, then there is a concord, which means the state is handling it. USA has no concord, no concordat, no agreement. The church handles it by default because your contract is a sacrament. If you're married in the church, it's the guarantor is the bishop, not the nice man in the state who's homo, who hates your kids and gets a commission when he gets as much money out of the husband as possible at the divorce. And then don't get me started on what they do to kids. Your kids are going to, chances are they're going to get dad derangement syndrome. It comes with the territory because you're separating them. She gets the house, she gets the kids. Dad's bad. What are the kids going to do? They're going to go with mom and think like that because that's the only place to be safe. Child abuse. All right, so here, let me see if I can get this bigger for you guys. Whoa, shoot. I messed this up. Okay, here's part of Bishop Olmsted's letter that has been making rounds a long time from my friend of mine who sent it to Bishop Olmsted, and she grabbed a hold of it. So he says, look, the Conference of Bishops in the United States has never put forth any particular legislation on the requirement of Catholics to seek permission of the diocesan bishop to separate. Complete lie. That is not correct. Third Council of Baltimore says you do need the bishop's permission. All right, that's the bishop's conference. Never has been overturned. It's divine law anyway. You can't overturn it. You can just ignore it, which is what they do. So he says he's never interpreted this as something required of the faithful, blah, blah, blah. The faith, there's the letter that just backed up what he said. And we're going to get more into that later, okay? So then she says, here, you want any Rose Sweet? Well, she can, what she does is she charges money to help and, all that stuff there. That's $100 an hour or whatever it is, 50 minutes, okay? So that's what she does. P.S. Okay, let's go. Then we're going to get to Terry Barber, Jesse Romero. Hold on a second. Let me look at something from Rose Sweet real quick. Let's share this tab instead. Okay. All right. Catholic Family Conference. Groovy. Now, let's make it a little bit bigger like this. All right. Now, so how many divorces and annulments has Rose Sweet had? So Bay McFarland, which a lot of you know, emailed and said, Rose Sweet told a person years ago who wrote her that she had 3 annulments, therefore she's had 4 husbands. Misery loves company. People want to be validated in their sin, which is why we have gay pride parades. Rose Sweet's basically doing her perpetual annulment pride parade. She is guilty as heck, but she doesn't want to go there, so she has reinvented the wheel, and she's more than happy to bring in Christopher West stuff, Theology of the Body stuff, Love Wins stuff, Vatican II stuff, and, of course, all the bishops are with her because they've got to have their NFP or the wheels fall off everything. What are you supposed to have, 15 kids? Yep. Oh, no. It's way harder to have 15 kids and just work as the husband. That's not fair. Oh, can you hear it? Oh, man, you're going to stand up to people? No. This is why I say, unless you return nature to the contract, you are powerless to defend it, which is why you watch kickboxing. They'll put some tough girl in the ring with any dude who's a out-of-shape loser. They even put like 2 guys or a guy with 2 girls. He just like boobity boom boom. Not anymore. Jesse Romero, you have met your match. Rose Sweet will kick your booty unless you can stand up by presenting nature. And I'm going to go to Jesse Romero's webpage in a minute where he folds like a house of cards, and I'm going to show why. Let's keep going. We're going to try to keep this under 2 hours so I can like clip it or whatever. All right. Now, here we got a little Jesse Romero to get into right now from his. So Jesse Romero cuts and pastes some stuff from the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible, New Testament, by Scott Hahn and Curtis Mitch. These guys are like high priests of Divorce Inc., an annulment, Ascension Press, Steubenville. It goes on and on. All right. That's what these guys are. Now, and I'm gonna show some more endorsements from Jesse Romero as well in a minute to show his bona fide with Catholic Inc. Basically, he's handcuffed, man. All right. By the way, I like Terry Barber and I like Jesse Romero. Those guys are really good. They say a lot of totally cool stuff. I think he's the man, really, but they're wrong on this. I remember I was talking to Terry Barber once, and I'm like, "You need the bishop's permission to divorce." And he goes, have you ever read that book, 3 to Get Married, Archbishop Fulton Sheen? I'm like, of course I have. The title is retarded, Terry. It doesn't take 3 to get married. It takes 2. All right. What they're saying is you have to. Marriage is no longer just physical; it's spiritual. No. It only takes 2 to get married, not 3. Sorry, just does. And you can ask for grace. You should. You must. You're going to make it, but it takes 2 to get married. So divorce it. This is Terry. This is Jesse Romero. Okay, basically giving up the farm. And Rose Sweet's coming in and breaking his jaw with her foot, no problem. Divorce and remarriage were permitted. Okay, what is this? Okay, this is so crazy. Divorce and remarriage were permitted under the Old Testament because of Israel's sinful and human weakness. Yeah, they were going to kill the wife if Moses didn't let them get a divorce. So he's like, all right, back off. Don't kill her. I'll let you do the divorce. You guys, you have hardness of heart, all right? That is the reason. In the New Testament, remarriage is adultery. Yeah. There's no such thing as it's adultery. Except on the grounds of unchastity. No, and no. Remarriage is adultery except on the grounds of unchastity. Remarriage is adultery no matter what grounds you have, because marriage is till death in all cases. All right? This Greek word porneia has 3 possible interpretations that harmonize with Catholic teaching on the indissoluble of marriage. Wrong, totally wrong, super wrong, no. The Greek word porneia has 1 possible interpretation because there's only one Catholic faith, one God, one truth. Only one possible interpretation, and that interpretation is the one that is never changing, always has been. One Bible, one interpretation. This is faith and morals. The church does not teach a new faith and morals for the times to accommodate Rose Sweet's 4 husbands. I heard her most recent husband died, so now she can really focus or whatever, but there's that. Anyway, what he just said here makes no sense. Remarriage is adultery except grounds of unchastity? What? You can separate for adultery, but you can never unmarry yourself unless you can unalive yourself. That sort of sounds stupid, but you know what I'm trying to say. Patristic view. Patristic just means early church fathers, what the church actually teaches. Whatever the early church fathers say, you got to accept it, all right? Oh, by the way, look at what Scott Hahn, Mr. Smiley Beard Stroker, and his buddy Curtis Murch says. This is from their little book where Jesse Romero copied this. The patristic view, all right? So we don't have marriage truth. We don't have marriage teaching. We don't have marriage law. We have a view. You got your view? I got my view. We can all get along. We just have different views. Catholics can agree to disagree because we just have views. Patristic view. Several church fathers, not all of them. So there's no unanimous here. It's just several fathers had a view. All right. Sounds like a little nursery rhyme. Several fathers had a view. Several church fathers had a view, and they suggested. They didn't know, but they suggested Jesus allowed for divorce in cases of serious sexual sins such as adultery. Yeah, that's what the church teaches. You can separate. Not when he allowed for divorce, what that means is divorce from bed and board, not divorce from the bond. As you know, I've told you this. I don't mean to gaslight you and say, I've told you this. I always tell people, you got something to say here. I'm going to put a little banner up just a minute. Yeah, express yourself artistically in the comments. You got something to say? Don't be shy. If you think I'm gaslighting you or I'm wrong or... All right, bring it on. It's totally cool. I can't think of anyone more than me that gets into the comments and backs it up. All right? That's from VeggieTales. Express yourself artistically. Yeah. Yes, that is VeggieTales. Now, where were we? Patristic view. Porneia has a broad range of meanings. This is correct. Porneia, adultery. This is why Canon 1153 says, for anything that makes your conjugal life, your living together, unbearable, unreasonable, super bad, anything, very broad range. That's exactly right. It can be translated as adultery. Thus, an adulterous situation does give cause for separation, so long as the spouses do not embark upon it. Wait, let me just back this up. This is Jesse Romero goofiness. All right, Jesse? Thus, by the way, I have tried really hard to get a hold of Jesse Romero. I know people that know him. I've got all his emails. I've emailed everyone at his place. Nope, zeros, complete zeros. That dude is super hard to reach. But at least I can get through to Terry Barber, but he doesn't always text back my questions, which I'll get to in a minute. Thus, an adulterous situation may give cause for separation, so long as the spouses do not embark on a second marriage. Even if they do embark on a second marriage, they're just adults. It's freaking stupid, whatever he said there. This squares with St. Paul's teaching that a separated couple has only two options: to be reconciled to one another or remain single. Hello, exactly. That's the way it's always been. Unless, like you said, the annulments were like as common as a Pauline or Petrine privilege, all right? Very rare, super rare stuff. And it was only if someone was physically impotent and they didn't tell you, they didn't know how to make a baby. They didn't understand you actually had to have kids or something, or stupid, weird little things like that. Or you married your cousin by accident or something. Just doesn't happen, man. People know what marriage is. It's like baby making. Every rap guy knows what that is. You can do it too. Momma said knock you out. I got a different version of that later. All right. So, now, that's the patristic view, which means the early church fathers, which means the Catholic view. All this stuff about second marriage, he's hedging his bets because he's trying to save Catholic face here. In an adulterous situation may give cause for separation so long as the spouses do not embark upon a second marriage. Has nothing to do with nothing. You can separate. Second marriages is a whole other deal, as in adultery. All right. So all this stuff about what porneia means and doesn't mean doesn't frickin' matter. It's just whatever the early church father says, that's what the Bible is, and there you go, done deal. However, things have changed, haven't they? We've developed. We know more now. Of course we know more. What do we know? The Levitical law view, whatever that is, because you got your view and I have my view, and the views are really nice. Everyone's got a view. That's why they call that show The View. Porneia can be interpreted, oh really, as unchastity, as in Matthew 19:9, which means in this instance that the marriage is invalid. Oh, okay, so now you can separate if the marriage is invalid. But wait, don't you have to go to the tribunal first? Well, yeah, but if you can separate if it's invalid, that means there's no law holding you to remain together because there's no contract, because the only thing is validity, all right? Therefore, divorce is no longer a sin. You can just walk in and out of your contract. There's no contract. They call it a covenant. All this is Protestant garbage because John Calvin created the marriage covenant because he fired the bishops. Now they got no bishops, so they have to have this marriage covenant with no law. All right? Because the spouses are too closely related, such unions ought to be severed because of the impediment posed by near blood relations. So they're saying, look, marry your cousin, it's not a valid marriage. Duh. But they're saying now this loophole, we can just exchange if If your spouse commits adultery, you can separate, where if you think you might not be validly married, you can separate. And a newsflash, anyone who doesn't get along with their spouse for more than 5 minutes isn't validly married anymore, because there's not a total gift of self. Obvious. Hello, so obvious. Okay. Spouses are too close to it. Such unions ought to be separate. Okay. A divorce under these conditions does not separate a true marriage bond, because a valid marriage never existed. So he just says you can take your marriage to the divorce court and trash it and give it to the homo judge with a chainsaw covered in AIDS who wants to transgender your kids. And that's okay, because you decided after howling at the moon and talking to a bunch of people online or whatever that your marriage was invalid, and you discerned it, and you even went to the Blessed Sacrament and prayed a lot, and you followed your heart, baby. Now, your divorce under these conditions does not separate a true marriage. Wasn't a true marriage. Something was missing. Yeah, it wasn't a soulmate thing. I just never felt right. Separate a true marriage bond because a valid marriage never existed. It is equivalent to an annulment. The Old Testament background for this decision, whatever. All right. So this is what they've done. They've reinterpreted God's word, because we don't need God anymore. What we need is NFP and annulments, and we're going to make that happen by goofing around with, we're going to call the Bible open season, and you've got your view and I have my view, and we can just agree to disagree, because Catholics don't know what the Bible means anymore, because it changes. It changes, bro. Come on, get with it. This is called development of doctrine. We'll just develop anything we want. You can change it. It's fine. It's fine. Holy new Pentecost. Okay. Then there's this no comment view. I don't even know what this is, and who cares? This is stupid. It doesn't matter. I don't care. It's too hard to figure out. It doesn't matter. This is the only thing that matters. Catholic view, non-Catholic view. Everyone goes with the non-Catholic view today because NFP says there's no contract. Therefore, you can separate when you want. And if you think it's invalid, there's no marriage. This is why all this marriage defense stuff is neither here nor there. It's a bunch of emptiness, because those only apply to valid marriages. Only valid marriages need the rules applied. So if you just judge for yourself one day that your marriage is invalid, because everyone told you so, and it sure sounds like it, and we're not getting along, and then go for it. Whatever you want to do, separate, like Rose Sweet said, and the bishop said, because he's well respected. You know what I mean? Reputable. Then get your annulment, and then go get your true soulmate, okay? The kids will understand. It'll be cool for them. They'll realize that Christ has multiple churches, or the church has multiple Christs, and sometimes we just have to struggle to find the true Christ, okay? And that this happens, nothing's going to go wrong. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And so you just keep doubling down, tripling down. So Rose Sweet did. She wants you to go along with her. While we're here, we're on a roll, so we'll just kind of keep looking at this, and then we'll go to Jesse Romero's endorsements. All right, now, this is Malachi 2:16, all this stuff about God hates divorce, which you've heard a bunch of times, right? Who's heard that? Raise your hand. Yes, everyone's heard God hates divorce. Wrong. When thou shalt hate her, put her away, saith the Lord God of Israel. But iniquity shall cover his garment, said the Lord of hosts. Keep your spirit and despise not. So none of this God hates divorce. If you hate your spouse, you're going to separate. That's AKA divorce from bed and board, okay? Because their bond is forever. The bond is for death, till death. But when you do that, you got iniquity, which means you can't receive communion. Not in a canon 916 kind of way, but in a canon 915. That's public sin, because it covers your garment, not your heart, all right? You're publicly, you got the big red letter I on you, iniquity, because you hate your spouse. That's like public manifest. This is why everyone used to say, all these people from from like 50 years ago, isn't divorce like a sin? And it still is. You can't change nature. It's not nice to play with Mother Nature. You margarine eaters out there know what I'm talking about. All right, here's a few more receipts. Canon 8, Council of Trent, If anyone saith that matrimonial causes do not belong to ecclesial judges, let him or let Rose Sweet be anathema, and let your bishop be anathema, because he is saying that matrimonial causes do not belong to ecclesial judges. Okay, he's an bishop, archbishop, whatever his name is, down there in Arizona, who's retired. We were just talking about him. Whatever his name is, that guy. He's an ecclesiastical judge. He's like, no, it doesn't belong to me. Anathema, sorry. You can't change this because it's not a mere civil effect. All right. P.S. We'll get to that in a minute. Hang on. But let's go to current canon law, 1401. By proper and exclusive, see that word exclusive? Right. The church adjudicates. That means ecclesiastical judges adjudicate cases which regard spiritual matters or those connected to spiritual matters. Divorce is a spiritual matter because conjugal life, education of children, those are natural law. That's divine law. That's spiritual matters. That's not mere civil effects. You have a right to your good reputation. You have a right to educate your kids. You have a right to the marriage contract. Not anymore, because NFP law says marriage is love. Therefore, there's no rights. There's just love or lack thereof. And if there's a lack of love, the marriage is invalid. So all this stupid stuff, all these laws are out the window, gone, later, see ya. It's sad, but we can't judge. We just have to discern prayerfully, And that's what they do. Canon 1671, 1993 code. Marriage cases of the baptized belong to the ecclesiastical judge by right. All right, so you got to read those two canons together. So we have the exclusive right and ecclesiastical judge by proper right. Case is like totally closed. Jesse Romero, Rose Sweet, Terry Barber, okay? The rest of Trad Inc. You're anathema if you don't get this stuff, but no one's paying attention. Like, oh, someone told me something about concordat, so I guess we don't do that in this country. That's all that's going on. That's it. Canon 1692. Here we go. This is the one of the ones, actually. There's a ton of canons about this. We're just going to talk about this one since Rose Sweet brought it up. Unless lawfully provided otherwise in particular places, like Third Council of Baltimore, 1888, which says, unless you get permission from the bishop, you shall be branded with grave sin. That's what Third Council of Baltimore said in 1888. Has never been abrogated, still in the law, still in force, and I'll explain why in a minute, okay? The personal separation of baptized spouses can be decided by decree of the diocesan bishop. That means that no one else can. Because if anyone else can, then your janitor can, or your potted plant can, or your monkey, or your ocelot, or whoever you want, your best friend, can also issue a decree, or the judgment of a judge in accordance with the following canon. So if you don't want you don't want to bother the bishop, just ask your mom, just ask anybody you want, or ask nobody. Just talk to yourself in the mirror. It'll be fine. That's how stupid Rose Sweet's assertion is, which is why she will not talk about it. All right, let's see. Where the ecclesiastical decisions do not produce civil effects, or if it is foreseen that there will be a civil judgment not contrary to divine law, the bishop of the diocese, which the spouses are living, can, in the light of their particular circumstances, give them permission to approach the civil courts. All right, civil effects. All right, civil effects are, what is your tax filing status? That is your civil effect of marriage. Everything else is a spiritual effect or a natural law effect or a divine law effect. Like, where do your kids live? Do you have daily access to your kids? Do you get to educate your kids? Do you have rights over the body of your spouse, which you consented to in marriage? State doesn't give a dang about any of that stuff. They just split up the money, try to put the kids somewhere, either with the guilty spouse or the innocent spouse, because there's no guilt or innocence anymore. It's just no fault. By the way, NFP law creates no fault divorce, because if love is the telos of the act, there's no legal definition for that, so there's no fault. If you think it's invalid, no harm, no foul. Just get the annulment. That's all that's going on. If the case is also concerned with the merely civil effects, we are the judges to be endeavor, blah blah blah. Case brought before the civil court from the very beginning. Yeah, merely civil effects are tax filing status, or if there's somebody's 401k, or I don't know what else. In other words, even the money is not civil effect, because in marriage you own everything in common per canon law, not just civil law. It's all together. One flesh, one property, all that stuff. So they use this loophole to just say, no, it's all civil effects. Wrong. This is why you're anathema if you say matrimonial causes, if you say divorce is merely a civil effect. You're anathema. Every bishop in the USA is anathema. What are we going to do? We're all what do you call it? Arians now. We're all anathema now on this. I call it the Unitarian heresy, because it's all about marriage or NFP and unity. Okay, here's a question I posed to Terry Barber, and I can't get the answer. Won't do it. This is from Arcanum Divinae, or whatever its encyclical is called, from 1880 something, from Leo the 13th, which is still in effect, and of course, and in Casti Connubii 78, or in the beginning of Casti Connubii, they say everything that he says in Arcanum, 2 thumbs way up, still in because when you ask your tribunal about what I'm about to read you, they'll say, well, Leo the 13th, he didn't know a lot back then, and he just didn't understand us Americans today, so it doesn't really apply. Gotta go. Now, let no one then be deceived. Your bishop is deceived. Rose Sweet is deceived. The Bishop Olmsted of Arizona, and also Jesse Romero and Terry Barber are deceived, as well as all of Catholic Inc. That's all. By the distinction which some civil jurists have so strongly insisted upon, which Catholic Inc. and every bishop has so strongly insisted upon, the distinction, namely by virtue which they sever the matrimonial contract from the sacrament, with the intent to hand over the contract, hand over your kids to the power of the state. They're going to chainsaw the mom and dad in half, sever, okay? How about we use a circular saw with a rusty blade, all right? And we'll cut those kids in half too. It'll be fine, all right? And we're going to hand your kids to the power and will of the rulers of the state. Doesn't that sound like a dream within a dream? Doesn't that sound good? We need more of that, okay? Because we have to find validity. And if we do, if we know we're in an invalid marriage, or we think we are, we'll just give those little civil effects with names that are our names in our DNA. All those civil effects. That's all. They just belong to the state. The state can handle them like parking signs or street signs or the garbage department that they manage. They can just maneuver that stuff around. It's fine. It'll work. Sometimes lanes get expanded and contracted. Sometimes eminent domain happens. The state, those are civil effects, man. It's not a spiritual man. The bishop has nothing to do with whether they put a bike lane on I-5 or they, eminent domain some old lady's house so they can build a skyscraper. That bishop has nothing to do with that stuff. So they're going to take your kids and give them to the wood chipper down at divorce court. Can you hear the blood and the skulls of those kids getting crunched? Use your imagination. Maybe you can. Head on down to your divorce court if you want to get like a crash course in how to get depressed in one easy lesson. Go check it out. Look at the faces of death in there. A distinction, or rather severance, of this kind cannot be approved. Leo the 13th, you're going to need to get with the times. I'm sorry, buddy. No, we're going to approve it. Yeah, because in the name of love, we're going to tear apart what God has joined together because we're judging it's not really together anyway. For certain, it is that in Christian marriage, this contract is inseparable from the sacrament. Oh, what did he say? The contract? No. Did he really mean that? The contract is inseparable from the sacrament. That means that the living together part, the kids' rosary every night, stories in bed with the kids, taking them to confirmation class, whatever, everyone going to church together, we're going to separate that from the sacrament. So this kind of severance cannot be approved for this reason, and the contract cannot be a true and legitimate without being a sacrament as well. For Christ our Lord added to marriage the dignity of the sacrament. But marriage is the contract itself. How about that for a soundbite? Marriage isn't a contract. Where have you heard that before? Catholic Inc. puts that on a huge billboard. And this is because, like I said, NFP kills contract. NFP kills it. Now all you have is covenant of love. But Leo XIII said marriage is the contract itself. He is correct. Whenever that contract is lawfully concluded, what does that mean? That means consummation. How do I consummate my marriage? How do I do it? You have to consummate through a total gift of self. How do I do that? Well, it takes a lifetime to do that. Your marriage is not consummated unless you never got divorced and you died together. Then it's consummated. Consummatum est, all right? As I've said before, a crucifixion takes wood and nails and a body that dies. That's all a crucifixion. That's the essence, the nature of a crucifixion. You get a body, you have nails, and you use gravity and time. Those are the ingredients for a legal crucifixion. All the significance and the meaning do not pertain to a legal crucifixion. There may be a pile of significance, meaning, and effect, but the crucifixion takes wood and nails and force and time. That's it. Now, if you want your contract lawfully concluded, it's the same thing as when you join with a harlot, or like Hosea and Gomer. They had a legal marriage. It was lawfully concluded. Gomer couldn't give herself, Hosea. Yes, did I get that right? Is Gomer? I think Gomer. I can't remember who's the wife. I believe it's Gomer. I can't remember. I'm sorry. Doesn't matter. In Hosea and Gomer, she wasn't capable of giving her total self. She was a ho. All right. Yeah, but God saw the marriage as valid. It was valid. Because all you need is the physical. Just like all you need for a crucifixion is the physical. There's plenty that can go into it and plenty of meaning and significance, but it's not the essence of crucifixion. The essence of marriage is the physical act and the right to it. That's it. Now, moving right, there's something else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it is. Kevin 1153. Here we go. This is the loophole that Rose Sweet pointed to, isn't it? I told you I'd bring the receipts. Here we go. Here we go, kids. You guys got to get this down. A spouse who occasions grave danger of soul or body. That means heresy or golf clubs or the combination thereof to the other or to the children, or likewise makes life unduly difficult. That's what they're saying with the, quote, patristic view. Porneia means anything against marriage. Anything that's against marriage. Unlawful. Not legal in marriage. It's not legal to make grave danger to soul or body in marriage. That's not legal. You don't get to do that because the conjugal rights, okay? You have the right to educate the children, and you have the right over the body. And if somebody is bringing in, if they're insisting on tarot card reading every night instead of Bible reading, or they are refusing the marital debt, or they are really into Everclear and then starting the place on fire with a little leftover, if there is any leftover. Nope, can't do that. That's against marriage. That falls under porneia. That's all it is. provides the other spouse with a reason to leave. You can leave by a decree of the local ordinary. And this is because, as we said, canon law and Trent say you're anathema if you don't get the local ordinary on your case to sign off on it, to do a trial, separation trial like we had all the time, like Rose Sweet says is impossible. No, it's totally possible, and a lot of these separations will get blown out because they're frivolous, they're fake. They're just like, I'm not feeling it anymore. I just want a bad boy now, or my husband's boring. All this stupid stuff. That's kind of all it is. It's like, yeah, he's got to get to work, and yeah, she's got to have kids. I don't want to do that. Well, nowadays you don't, because NFP says you don't have to do that. So they can't walk it back. That's why what we're trying to do is like salvage the future generations here. If you're going to get married, you got to reclaim the definition of marriage for yourself, because everybody, your nice friend Terry Barber and Jesse Romero won't give it to you, and Rose Sweet is going to kick them in the face and stone cold knock them out and deliver new marriage feminist trash for you to eat if you don't wise up. Hence my appearance tonight on this video. Or if there is danger and delay even on our own authority. Now, that means if, speaking of getting knocked out, if your spouse is going to knock you out, okay, let's say your wife is like a 5-time champion kickboxer, and you you're in chemo, and you can't really fight, and so she like starts knocking you out or whatever because she's resentful or she's nuts. Then you're in danger. You after chemo, you never come back and you slither out of there, okay, and you go move somewhere else because there's danger and delay of due process. Danger and delay of what? What? Of getting the separation decree, of going to the thing that Rose Sweet says is too hard and bringing your case to the bishop. That's what you have to do. You have to do it. It's public. The contract is public. Marriage is the contract itself. You can't separate the contract from the sacrament. The sacrament is considered valid until proven otherwise. You don't get to privately judge your marriage as invalid, therefore I'm blowing out of here. No, Canon 1060, it's valid until proven otherwise. Ed Peters is scared of me. That's why they won't talk. They got nothing. Sorry. Just like they say, like Bugs Bunny says, it just goes to show you how a one-eyed jackrabbit, can be a king. In all cases, when the reason for separation ceases, the common conjugal life is to be restored unless otherwise provided by ecclesiastical authority. The bishop is judging. The bishop is managing your separation. Sort of like when you are a criminal, they'll give you a little ankle bracelet so they can monitor you. You'll get it off eventually if you're good, but the state is managing your deal, homie. You don't get to just, hey, I'm going to manage my own incarcerate. No. The state's managing it. And when you bring your case to separation, the bishop is managing it. He's going to tell you what's going on, who gets to do what. He's like, look, you got to go home and have kids. And look, dude, I know you don't want to go to work. You got to work. You don't want to do this. I'm going to deny sacraments to whoever is not complying with my judgment. That's what you have to do. Sorry, it's tough stuff. I don't want my cross. You don't have to anymore. What cross? You just find love, man. Canon 1152, Part 3. Within 6 months of having spontaneously terminated the common conjugal life, that means everybody, not just adulterers, anybody, within 6 months of leaving. So let's say your wife is a knockout champion because she's a kickboxer from the Bronx and she knows everything and she's got gold medals, like what's his face got gold medals on the wall. What's that guy's name? Hang on, I got to remember his name just a minute. Gold records on the wall. That's Joe Walsh.
Caught up in endless solutions that have no meaning, just another hunch based upon jumping conclusions.
Yeah, dog. I mean, come on. It's like this guy's kind of got it too. And common solution. This song's kind of cool. They talk all about nature and how nature comes up and surprises you. Hello, natural law is marriage, and when you start, like I said, you start bending all the rules and creating your own thing. You sort of do what this guy's saying. You're not abiding with nature. You're doing caught up in endless solutions. I got more about that, but we got to get back to the gig here. Hang on a sec. Let me push pause and find. All right. So, in all cases, let's see. Within 6 months of having spontaneously terminated the common life, the innocent spouse is to bring a case for separation to the competent ecclesiastical authority. Within 6 months, the innocent spouse, that would be you because you're innocent, right? Your spouse is the guilty one. And if he's not guilty, you can't separate. But since he's guilty, you can because you're innocent. However, the innocent spouse is to bring a case for separation to the bishop. Is to bring, which means must. You must. Okay? You can't, if you've danger and delay, they'll give you a 6-month window. That's what that is. Speaking of danger and delay, let's scroll down here just a minute. I'm going to find something that's kind of cool here. Where is it? Just a minute. We'll come back up to it. Okay, so Canon 87. Look at this. The bishop cannot dispense from procedural laws. That would be separation laws, all that. The separation laws. But if recourse to the Holy See is difficult, and at the same time there is danger of grave harm and delay, the ordinary can dispense from these laws. It's the same effect. In other words, if there's danger and delay of the time it's going to take to lick the stamp and get it in the mailbox, or the due process, because you must do it, the bishop can dispense with the procedural law, but only if recourse to the Holy See is difficult, or something like that. If you need, so obviously it's not, and you can get through, but if it is, I mean, who knows what's going on? What if you live in the middle of nowhere or something? So the point is that you always have to do due process one way or another. If it's dangerous to delay, you can take matters into your own hands, but you can't keep it that way. You got 6 months in the case of the separation here. Right. Okay. Now let's keep going. Genesis 3:4. And the serpent said to the woman, "No, you're not going to die the death. For God doth know that in what day soever you eat thereof, your eyes shall be open, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." Classic. So what Rose Sweet, Jesse Romero, Terry Barber, and Bishop Olmsted are saying, instead of the serpent, they're saying, no, it's not anathema. For God knows that any time that you separate on your own authority, your eyes will be open, and you will be as ecclesiastical judges, knowing good from evil. So Cinderella, Tarzan's giving you a hard time or whatever, or you're not really, it's just not happening. And you want something, maybe you're thinking about somebody a little more docile, whatever. Even though you married Tarzan, it's like, hey, Cinderella, you can know good and evil yourself. We've decided. And listen to us, because we're respected. And nowadays, the serpent, she respected the serpent, and 80% of these women are the ones doing the divorcing. They respect these other serpents, so to speak. So Terry Barber, Jesse Romero is a good dude, but he's doing the devil's work here when he is saying you can separate on your own authority because it's invalid. And by the way, Rose Sweet is present sometimes on Virgin Most Powerful Radio, so she's kind of like worked her way in there because, like I said, she will kick your teeth in if you get in her way because you have no defense. If you're holding the bag for NFP, Rose Sweet's going to kick your frickin' booty, and there's nothing you can do about it because marriage is love, so shut up. We know what love is, and you don't, punk, or whatever. Who can judge if somebody's not getting the love they need or their love language or whatever, dude? Who can judge? We can't. These things are sad. They just happen. Again, like I said, where am I? I want to try this banners thing. Express yourself artistically in the comments. Yes, yes. Dr. Ed Peters' article. Now, this is what Rose Sweet said, the respected canonist. Dig it? Who is he? Dr. Ed Peters. Okay, so this is a quote from that article. Okay, and I'll provide the link to all this stuff. Don't worry about it. The word Ed Peters has been hearing the noise from Bay McFarland, annulment proof, and a bunch of other people like, hey, knock, knock. You got to get the bishop's permission. What's up, Mr. Canon Lawyer? And he's like, whoa, wait a minute. By the way, there's an article from Ed Peters that's taken off the internet. I can't find it anywhere. And he said, back when civilization was more broadly Christian, you had to have the bishop's permission, but not anymore. You can't find that. It was in our Sunday Visitor or something like that. One of those newspapers. You can't get it anymore. They won't give it up. It's gone. It was crazy. Ed Peters. Second, the church has, to be sure, fundamental jurisdiction over marriage of all the baptized. And then references 14, which is the canon laws we already went over. Trent, the new code of canon law says exclusive right over the, So marriage belongs to the church, the ecclesiastical judges. To be sure, he is correct about that. Even though the church chooses not to exercise that jurisdiction over marriages involving only non-baptized Catholics, or as a rule, even to involve herself in civil consequences of marriage between Catholics. That is more diversional tactic, gaslight, filler, goo, stupidness. It doesn't make any difference what he just said. I'm going to push pause and yellow highlight this just a minute. Okay, I did some highlighting. So we're going to get ready for our super gaslighting 101 from Ed Peters, who's going to he's going to hypnotize you and move the ball without you noticing. All right. So the church has jurisdiction over all marriages of the baptized. Yep, and yep. Okay. So then he says, look, but the church doesn't involve herself in the civil consequences of marriages. That's right. The civil consequences are tax filing status, what your last name is, stuff like that. That's it. Okay? That's the civil. Everything else is the spiritual, moral, natural, divine law stuff. Like your kids, your wife living with you right over the education, all that stuff. That is not a civil effect. Okay? That's why the bishop has jurisdiction over that everywhere that human beings exist or natural law exists or everywhere where God exists is where the bishop has jurisdiction. He can farm that out to the state if he chooses, provided there's a concordat with Rome and that they've vetted the state to follow the procedure of divine law and judge an innocent and a guilty spouse and all that stuff. I don't know if there's any concordat nations anymore, but in Africa and stuff, they don't worry about it because no one divorces anyway. And when they do, the whole town comes and says, go and do this. And then the people who, the whole family gets their communion cut off. They're like, they don't give communion. The family's got to back up the marriage. And if the family is supporting the divorce, they all lose communion. Go to Eritrea and try it out. You'll see. Now, so, still, the retention of norms. Hello, Norm. The retention of norms, such as Canon 1151 through 55 and 69 through the 66, 96, those are the separation canons. They're not norms. They're procedural canons. This is a substantive canon because they substantiate the process. These are the procedural canons here. 92 through 96. These are the substantive canons of that procedure, 1151 through 55. They're calling these, he calls them norms. They're just norms, dude. Come on. It's just a norm. Oh, by the way, the new catechism is a sure norm. A norm isn't a legal definition. A norm can be pushed around or moved or schmoozed or whatever. You got a norm, okay? No, God says, keep my commandments, not my norms, right? So you got to watch out for these words. I'm telling you, this is how he's moving the ball, okay? So he's calling it a norm. Forget that. It's divine law, and it's a substantive canon and a procedural canon. In universal law, might help to preserve, at least in some symbolic way. Okay, Was the light red or green? Well, it was kind of maybe sort of, I don't know, it just might helpful be thinking about kind of perhaps a little bit of, perhaps maybe if you know, kind of think about hold your mouth the right way, it was sort of perhaps considered on next Tuesday a little bit green. That's what he's saying. No, it was green. It was red. Whatever. Might help to preserve, at least in some symbolic way, the church's assertion of her radical baptismal jurisdiction over marriage. Look, what are you talking? What's this radical baptism stuff? Look, the church doesn't assert her jurisdiction. She has it. And you're anathema if you say otherwise. It's not symbolic. By the way, this is all marriage is today, is a symbol, right? Just like, look, this right here, this crucifixion, this is primarily a symbol. It's not nature. It didn't really happen like that. It doesn't have to happen. It's just a symbol, okay? There's like Christ rising from the dead was just a symbol. He didn't really rise from the dead. You can't do that. It was just a symbol. So now we have marriage as a symbol, right? Marriage is Christ and his church. It's one flesh union and Trinitarian love and total gift of self like Christ. It's all symbolic. That's all this is. This is why we have these laws. It's symbolic, okay? Hey, I'm Ed Peters. I'm respected. Rose Sweet respects me, and I'm the American Pope. So go with me, okay? Ed Peters has spoken. But wait, there's more. This law might help to preserve, at least in some symbolic way, the church's assertion of her radical. Blah, blah, blah. I find Ed Peters is going, I find the cost of retaining in law symbolic norms. Woo! See what he did? He took fundamental jurisdiction over marriage, and now he's calling it a symbolic norm. He did that in a few lines, and you just fell right into it because you're so big on getting your divorce or whatever. You're like, I'm going to turn the heater on for a little bit. My toes. Okay. I find the cost of retaining law in symbolic norms. That is what these. He thinks it's hard. I find the cost of retaining in law. Whoops, I messed that up. These in law symbolic norms, if that is what these canons amount to, in many places. So it's like he's schmoozing. Well, the light wasn't green in everybody's mind, but just perhaps it might be a little bit helpful in some people's eyes, in some jurisdictions, occasionally to consider whether we might find the light green or not. But these questions need to be decided elsewhere. Everyone clear now? No! It's like, duh, red light, green light? Ha! How else are you going to play that game? Red light, green light. So he finds the cost of retaining these symbolic norms, if that is what these canons amount to in many places, to be high. If only in terms of their potential to cause confusion among the faithful. Whatever, dude. But the Pope apparently concluded otherwise. Nevertheless, even symbolic canons, so now we've determined that they're symbolic because marriage only is symbolism after all, because NFP says it's love, Christ's love, God is love, so marriage is love. It's symbolic. This, like I said, you don't have to actually carry your cross. You just have to symbolically do so. You don't have to physically carry your cross, man. Just symbolically. So if your cross is chafing your hide there a little bit, don't do it. It's just, if in your heart you're trying really hard to carry your cross. The legislator, nevertheless, even symbolic canons must be read in accord with their text and context. Whenever you hear sadly or text and context, or even just the word context, run the other way. That's liberal setup for we are going to call a red light green in this context. All right. Now, so nevertheless, even symbolic canons must be read in accord with their context and blah, blah, blah. And the context of these canons on spousal separation strongly suggest, because I'm a super cool, highly respected canon lawyer from the Larry Zonka chair over there in Detroit, strongly suggest that they are not to be applied in all countries the way they might be applied in some. which is another way of saying we're going to do whatever we want and we're going to call it Catholic. But we're going to schmooze, hide, and diffuse, obfuscate, and say a bunch of words, and we're going to throw a bunch of things in the way. Kind of like when you ask somebody, were you or were you not there at 3 o'clock? Well, it depends on what you mean by there. And 3 o'clock, well, that could be different time zones. And, when you say 3, I think trace, which is like not the word trace, like trace a pencil, but trace meaning Spanish. And that's a Latin derivative of a certain type of Germanic language in some cultures, some places. Did I answer your question? No. That's all he's doing. He's giving a bunch of goo to get out of it, which is why they won't answer any questions. Look, it's anathema if the bishop isn't judging your case. If your house is on fire and you got to run out the door before you call the fire department or settle with insurance claims, so be it. But eventually you got to do that, okay? If you're going to abandon your spouse, you are an abandoner unless the bishop, you're guilty until proven otherwise. So you've got to get your little booty over to the tribunal and get the separation decree. Otherwise, you are a public abandoner, even if you're Snow White as the wind-driven snow. You're a public abandoner. That's grave sin. You're cut. You may not present yourself for communion, and the priest in a perfect world should deny communion because you're a public sinner, just like adultery is public sin, abandonment is public sin. But if it's all symbol and if it's all love, who are we to judge? Okay, better reminder one more time. Express yourself artistically in the comments. Yep. What else we got? Okay, so this is that letter from the bishop, Bishop Olmsted. Yep, the Conference of Bishops, the U.S., has never put forth any particular legislation. So what he's wrong about that. Sorry, it's right here in black and white. Third Council of Baltimore, 1888, so not that long ago. Decree 126, we command all baptized married persons that they must not go to the civil courts to obtain a, what? Separation from bed and board without previously receiving permission from the ecclesiastical authority. That's the church has always taught that. That's canon law. That's Council of Trent. Should anyone attempt this, Jesse Romero, take notes. Let him know that he incurs the guilt of grave sin and that he shall be punished as the bishop shall decide. All right? So, if you have incurred the guilt of grave sin, that means it's objective. That's why your garment has iniquity on it. Public, manifest. Not necessarily notorious, but it's manifest. It doesn't have to be okay, Joe Biden would no communion because he's pro-abortion. That's notorious. But manifest is anything that's not a secret sin, an occult sin, a private sin. Like, I don't know, you have vengeful thoughts. That's not manifest sin unless you act on them. But you divorce, you separate, you take you go to the civil authority. You're basically going to the mafia who hates God and trashing your kids, and you're cutting them in half. You can't take that to heaven with you. They're trying to help you out. All right, that's what's going on here. Now, is that so? But people say, well, wait a minute. We had the 1917 code, and then we had the 1983 code. We had Vatican II. So didn't all that stuff wipe out this Third Council of Baltimore? No, it didn't. And this is another reason why Ed Peters is scared to death to talk to me. If he says anything, he loses. That's why he's like tight-lipped. Canon 6.1. This is canon law right now. And 2 and 3 of the 1983 code. Okay, I wrote this. By the way, I sent this letter in response to Bishop Olmsted. I'm like, hello, can you answer this question for me since you are a big shot canon lawyer, please? And you owe us the faith. We have a right to be taught the faith from our shepherd. So knock, knock. Can you give us this, please? The 1983 code indicates that this particular legislation with penalty enacted by the bishops of the USA is still lawfully binding in the USA. Is that correct? Sincerely yours in Christ, John Farrell. I think I asked him this question multiple times through the secretaries, any way I could possibly get him the memo. The answer was no comment. We're not getting to you. That was probably like back in 17 or 18 or not, whatever. Canon 6. Let us consider Canon 6, shall we? When this code comes into force, the 1983 code, the following are abrogated. 1917 code. Yes, that's correct. All right. So there are lots of examples in the 20th century where all these bishops and all these there were local synods. They all said you got to have the bishop's permission to divorce or it's grave sin. Many, Portland, Providence, Rhode Island, a lot of different Chicago, a lot of there's New Orleans. There's lots of local synods and lots of talk in the 20th century after the 17 code about, I'll show you the receipts if you want, about how you have to get the bishop's permission to divorce, okay? So obviously the 17 code did not abrogate it. Now it says, look, the following are abrogated. Other laws, universal or particular, this is a particular law for the USA. So particular laws are abrogated, which are contrary to the provisions of this code, okay? So the 1917 code it's not contrary to the 17 code because the 17 code says it's a marriage contract and there's nothing like you have to get the bishop's permission that's anathema that would be like contrary to it. So the 1983 code doesn't contradict Canon 8 of Trent. Nobody says it does. Nobody says it does. They just don't talk about it. They ignore it. Okay? So Canon 6 Part 2 here does not abrogate Third Council of Baltimore. But wait, what about Part 3? All penal laws enacted by the Apostolic See, whether universal or particular, unless they are presumably goes up. So is it a penal law? Is Third Council of Baltimore a penal law because it says he shall be punished as the bishop shall decide? No, and here's why. All penal laws enacted by the Apostolic See. This was not enacted by the Apostolic See. It was enacted by the Council of Bishops in Baltimore, Maryland, USA, not by the Apostolic See. Everything is untouched, not abrogated. Third Council of Baltimore. Today, 2025. No way around it. All you can do is ignore what I say and trust your bishop. That's all you can do because he's not going to lead you astray. These bishops they totally know what's going on, dude. They no way. Come on. Okay? So like who do you trust, man? Trust me, bro? They will not answer this question. They won't answer a lot of questions. Canon 87, the bishop cannot dispense from procedural laws. That's right. We already went through that. A procedural law is Canon 1692 through 1696, and they are joined at the hip by 1151 through 55, the substantive canons. No bishop can dispense with these procedural canons. You can't do it because they're connected to natural and divine law. You can't toss that stuff out. If a bishop wants to change some rules about some things that he has competence over, he has power over, yes, but not procedural law because it's divine. It's connected to divine and natural. In the words of MC Hammer, can't touch this. Now, we already talked about Hosea. Yeah. I think we already got through all that. I think we got through this whole thing. So we got to go to Jesse Romero and his... here, let's go to that real quick. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here we go. Share this tab instead. Jesse, my man, what do you got for us? All his endorsements. Why is Jesse Romero Catholic Inc.? He may be trad ink, but he's definitely got some Catholic ink bona fides. All right? Anyway, Jesse Romero is like super mega tough. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a kickboxer, right? Look, it says he won many kickboxing titles. But he never went up against Rose Sweet. Rose Sweet's going to kick his booty. She's going to take her foot and shove it right into his boxing glove and use his own 5 fingers to knock himself out. That's what she does because he has no defense because he has forced to say marriage is love because Jesse Romero thinks NFP can be licit, just like Father Ripperger says. Now, let's keep going. Okay, here. Oh, let's get a little bit bigger. So look at who Jesse likes. There's Steve Ray. Catholic Inc. to the max. Steve Ray blocked me. I don't know who Debbie Georgiani is or whatever. Trent Horn, they don't get much bigger NFP than that. All right. So he's got to be on good with these dudes. Matthew Pinto, Ascension Press is crazy. Ascension Press is like Catholic Inc. Blue blood to the max. Cha-ching. Benedictine College. Yeah, whatever. Fine. Terry Barber. Hello, Terry. Doesn't take 3 to get married. I like Terry Barber, but he this is the third rail. He can't talk about it. Charlie, I don't know who you are necessarily. Father Matthew Spencer. Yeah, okay, I don't know him. Steve Wood's a good guy. I like Steve Wood. But this is another thing they just can't touch. Because no one has the eye of the tiger, very few people. And I'm the only one who can play bad cop. So you can take notes. And if you think I'm wrong, tell me. And if you can't prove me wrong, then accept it. But don't just hang out and go, oh, I'm not going to talk about that. What else we got? Who else we got? Oh, boy. Father William Casey. Fathers of Mercy. Sorry, Fathers of Mercy. I used to really like those guys. No. There was one good guy, Father Chuck Zmudzinski. He was good. And he even took on Ed Peters on their website. They got rid of him pretty quick. He's out to pasture, Father Chuck. Took down the stuff from Fathers of Mercy website, probably 2016 or so. OUT out. Just like Star-Bellied Sneetch. Okay? No star on that on him. Now, so like I said, the Fathers of Mercy are part of Catholic Inc. too, to a degree. I know I forgot the one guy who's over there was really good, but nah. Father Don Calloway, good guy, nice story. Medjugorje, whatever. But NFP, Jason Everett, we've already talked about him a lot, and he's capital BAD when it comes to this all this family love goo stuff. He's rose sweet. He's a rose sweet lapdog of sorts. Chris Stefanik, same thing. Super Catholic Inc. Big team of money behind him doing his dealy bob. Cy Kellett, Catholic Answers. Enough said there. Enough said. I don't know Dr. Scott Sullivan. Whatever. Ralph Martin. I'm from Ann Arbor. I've emailed Ralph too. He got back to me once, but he's part of the problem too. I think he's an NFP guy. Tim Staples. We got a Catholic Answers do a video to make about Tim Staples. That guy they barely let me into the Catholic Answers conference. Barely. But they said, you better be on your best behavior. Not good. No good. He gives great talks about Mary. Really good talks. But he's all wet on this NFP stuff. Same with Deacon Harold Burke Silvers. He gives the best talk ever about going to confession and why you shouldn't be Protestant about it. Best. But he's part of Catholic Inc. too. So there you go. So we got there's Jesse Romero, my friends. I don't mean to say my friends. I don't want to sound like Nick Carbongos. Speaking of, if you got some time to waste, some time to kill, you can go check out Selahcast. They will definitely hang you out to dry and waste your time, but you can have some fun doing it. Let me collect my thoughts. Just 1 minute. So if any of y'all know Terry Barber or Jesse Romero, because they're two peas in a pod, this is mostly a Terry Barber jurisdiction here because it's at his place, the historic Sacred Heart Chapel. We got to get Rose Sweet out of there. She's bad for business. She's bad for marriage because instead of, remaining single or reconciling, she basically advocates for divorce on your own authority and getting that annulment, and it just trashes marriage, and it's a perpetual thing. I don't think Terry Barber can handle it. So if you got any influence over Terry, give him a call. If you want any help with that, don't be shy. Talk to me. Anyway, listen, it's been super grand. And if you're not opposed to NFP, you're not on the team. So go out there and stay toxic.
But now I got a new tour. I'm going insane. Starting a hurricane.